leverage to use to maximum advantage. Last week, the Washington Post reported, wait, do people actually give their money to the Washington Post to read their articles? Sorry, I vote with my money. According to BuzzFeed, last week, the Washington Post reported that Congress Office of Compliance paid out $17 million for 264 settlements with federal employees over 20 years for various violations, including sexual harassment. 1 week after the Washington Post report on sexual harassment settlements in Congress was released, independent journalist Mike Cernovich provided BuzzFeed with court-documented settlement agreements between Democratic Congressman John Conyers and an undisclosed woman. You know, the congressman that gave us this gem about reading bills before you vote on them.
I love these members that get up and say, read the bill. What good is reading the bill if it's 1,000 pages and you don't have 2 days and 2 lawyers to find out what it means after you read the bill?
I've narrowed your choices down to 5 unthinkable options. Each will cause untold misery.
I picked number 3.
You don't even want to read them first?
I was elected to lead, not to read. Number 3.
According to the Associated Press, Conyers originally denied that any sexual harassment settlements even existed. Of course, that changed when Conyers realized that BuzzFeed had the court settlements, 3 of which that had been notarized. Here's Conyers' statement.
I have long been and continue to be a fierce advocate for equality in the workplace, and I fully support the rights of employees who believe they have been harassed or discriminated against to assert claims against their employers. That said, it is important to recognize that the mere making of allegations does not mean it to be true. The process must be fair to both the employee and the accused.
The process must be fair to the employee and the accused. Let's review the process. The Congressional Office of Compliance complaint process. Alleged victims have 180 days to file a report of an incident. For the first 30 days, they're forced to undergo mandatory counseling, at which time the employee is forced to sign a confidentiality agreement to move forward. So let me get this straight. Government employees who are making allegations of sexual harassment against some of the most powerful and potentially corrupt people in the United States of America are forced to sign legal documents guaranteeing they remain silent before a formal accusation can even be made. I wonder why there are so few government employees who blow the whistle on corrupt politicians. 30 to 60 days after an alleged incident is reported, the alleged victim is forced to undergo mandatory mediation, and that employee must continue working with the alleged perpetrator for 90 days until a formal complaint can be filed. Imagine it were you, your daughter, your wife, your son, it happens to men too, are sexually harassed by what you know to be one of the most powerful and corrupt people in the United States of America. You're forced to sign a confidentiality agreement where you legally can't go public with what occurred. You then are forced to undergo mandatory mediation where you speak with an employee who works for the very powerful and corrupt person you're making the allegations against. And at the same time, you're forced to continue working with that powerful and corrupt person for a 90-day period before you can file a formal complaint. After 90 days, you can file a formal complaint, at which time you could go to federal court or have an administrative hearing, negotiation, settlement approved by the Committee on House Administration, and reach a settlement. I know what you're thinking. If you're telling the truth, why not go to federal court? Here's the kicker. According to the BuzzFeed article that broke the story, alleged victims are forced to pay for their own legal representation while the alleged harassers are represented for free by House counsel. This is what we call leverage. Powerful multimillionaires in Congress have their legal representation paid for free by the taxpayers. But paycheck-to-paycheck government employees have to pay for their own legal representation. Powerful Congress members use the threat of a long, expensive, drawn-out lawsuit to leverage alleged victims into settlements. Not to mention the victims already signed confidentiality agreements. They can't go public at this point.
The current media environment is bringing a much-needed focus to the important issue of preventing harassment in workplaces across the country. However, equally important to keep in mind in this particular moment is the principle of due process and that those accused of wrongdoing are presumed innocent unless and until an investigation establishes otherwise. In our country, we strive to honor this fundamental principle that all are entitled to due process.
Conyers is right about that. So far, these are just allegations, and in the United States of America, it's very important that people have due process. But in this situation, I see a unique opportunity. In most cases revolving around public figures, we see an initial accusation followed by subsequent similar accusations. The argument can be made that the accusations that followed the initial are done for reasons of fame or for money. This gets more complicated around political figures because political opponents who see weakness can pay political operatives to make false accusations. But this case is unique. The initial accusations have been sealed from public record. So if there is a string of similar accusations, they wouldn't be copycats, they wouldn't be for personal gain, and it's very unlikely that similar accusations across 20 years would be coincidence if no one else knew about them. If you're innocent, sign a legal document permitting the release of all previous sexual harassment settlements you've made. Please tweet this report to @MikeCernovich, @PaulRyan, and @JohnConyers Jr., #SignTheRelease. And while we're at it, let's exercise some leverage of our own. We should ask every member of Congress to sign the release to documents related to the Office of Compliance and sexual harassment settlements. Some people in Congress will sign the document, and this will put pressure on other members of Congress to also sign the document. And those who refuse to sign the release, we're on to you.
In this case, I expressly and vehemently deny the allegations made against me and continue to do so.
And what were the allegations? Conyers, the ranking Democrat on the powerful House Judiciary Committee, repeatedly made sexual advances to female staff that included requests for sex acts, contacting and transporting other women with whom they believed Conyers was having affairs, caressing their hands sexually, and rubbing their legs and backs in public. 2 staffers alleged in their signed affidavits that Conyers used congressional resources to fly in women they believed he was having affairs with. Another said she was tasked with driving women to and from Conyers' apartment and hotel rooms. In her complaint, the former employee said Conyers repeatedly asked her for sexual favors and often asked her to join him in a hotel room. On one occasion, she alleges that Conyers asked her to work out of his room for the evening, but when she arrived, the congressman started talking about his sexual desires. She alleged that he told her she needed to touch it, in reference to his penis, or to find him a woman who would meet his sexual demands. In response to public outrage over John Conyers' deviant behavior and 264 still sealed sexual harassment settlements in Congress, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan said this:
People who work in the House deserve and are entitled to a workplace without harassment or discrimination. Regarding the Office of Compliance, last month I directed the Committee on House Administration to conduct a full review of all policies and procedures related to workplace harassment and discrimination. Additional reforms to the system are under consideration as the committee continues its review. He also noted that last week he implemented mandatory sexual harassment training for all congressional members and staff.
Yeah, Paul, congressmen just need training not to invite their employees to hotel rooms, tell them to touch it, or find someone else that will. What a joke. Paul Ryan has the authority to introduce legislation to facilitate the release of all sexual harassment settlements related to the Office of Congressional Compliance. Here's the final tweet I want you to send. @MikeCernovich. Pressure Rep. John Conyers and all members of Congress to sign the release. Paul Ryan, unseal the deals, with the link to my report. Did you enjoy this report? Join the follow-up discussion at www.patreon.com/FFRnews. Thanks for watching.